So welcome everyone to, I think, the first Smart Talk by ThinkSport. Benjamin Penkert, located in Berlin, founder of SportsTechx. We provide data and insights about sports tech startups and the surrounding ecosystem. And I have a very interesting panel here with me, and I would like to invite them to introduce themselves.
I'm Benoit, I'm the founder and CEO of Gait, Swiss technology startup focused on wearable sensors for movement analysis in sports and sports medicine.
Hello, my name is Lauri. My background is in telecoms and media, and I'm helping investors to identify the right targets for their money. Sometimes I participate myself and advise various parties. I'm based in Switzerland, but now safely isolated in Finland, my home country.
Hi, I'm Mota, head of digital at the International Volleyball Federation, leading their product and digital content team here in Lausanne.
Sounds good. So I think a very cool panel, a startup, an investor, and a federation. So a good mix here. So what I'm going to speak about is the state of European sports tech. It's basically a representation of the European SportsTech Report that we publish annually. And I want to highlight a few slides to hopefully give you a good feeling about what's going on in that market. Most of the things we do, or most of the things we look at, is from an investor perspective, or looking from where money goes into, as we think this is one of the main indicator for where the industry is heading. It's not the only indicator, but it's one of the main ones. All right, let's jump right in. The total investment amount. On this slide, you can see how much money went into European sports tech companies over the last 5 years. These are the green bars. You also have this blue-gray line, which shows you the number of rounds in that respective year. And underneath the chart, you see the average and the median ticket size. All important KPIs to get a feeling for what's going on in European sports tech. I'm only going to focus on the main parts. Feel free to ask more detailed questions later. So what, of course, I'm going to point out is that we have some steady growth over the last couple of years. One thing I got to add is that in 2019, we've added a 15% reporting lag, because this amount, or this research we've done in March, and typically in March you don't have all the deals already disclosed from the previous year, and it's safe to say that we can add at least 15% to the number from 2019. So if we add this, last year was the first 500 million euro plus investment year in European sports tech, and with one little exception, which was the year of 2017, we have a nice little growth year over year in European sports tech. The interesting thing, though, is that's contrary to the development in both North America and Asia, which are bigger from the total amount of investment. So I think we have a very nice situation here in Europe, because we're the only one of the three major continents in sports tech who can say, hey, we had a good growth last year over the year before. Another thing I wanted to point out is that the rounds are decreasing since actually 2017, even though the amount of investment is increasing. So average ticket size is higher than ever before, and median ticket size in the last 2 years is also very strong. So it seems like investors, maybe Lauri, you can comment on it later, seem to be more selective in their deals. So this is the situation that we have right at the beginning. Europe is growing, contrary to North America and Asia. So the question is, where does all the money go to? And first of all, we are going to look on a geographical level. And there are, again, some observations to be made. These are the top 15 countries for the same time frame, so also 2015 to 2019. And what we see year over year is that we have three major hubs in Europe. The UK, France, and Germany, with UK being clearly ahead of the two, actually having almost as much funding as France and Germany together. One thing that we have to add, we have a few undisclosed deals in Germany. For example, Urban Sports Club did not disclose the round, and a few others. So the actual number might be higher. A few other observations here. We have surprisingly Romania on position number 4. This comes from one single deal last year in a betting solution. So it's probably just a one-time thing, a really good big company, and typically Romania did not appear yet on our overview. Two other things I want to highlight is that the Nordics are pretty strong. with 3 countries in the top 10. And if you would combine all 3 of them, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, they would actually rank on position number 2. And if you look outside of sports tech, the Nordics are a very strong company when it comes, or country when it comes to investment or investment per capita. And we've seen quite some unicorns coming out of the Nordics. So this is definitely a region that I think we should watch. On the contrary, a little bit disappointing, the south of Europe and especially Spain. Spain is only ranking on position number 12 when it comes to funding. If we compare that to the amount of startups that are in Spain, they rank on number 7 in Europe. So number 7 in amount of startups, rank 12 in funding. So that's a little gap there. So I think there's some room for improvement. Cool. So we now know that there's a lot of money going to Europe. We know into which countries it is going. The question is which startups are actually benefiting from this. And in short, this is the framework that we always use to structure the sports tech ecosystem. To give you like a super quick run through, what you've seen in the upper left in green is activity and performance. These are the solutions that are used by the athletes and also coaches. So according to Bill Bowerman, the founder of Nike, everybody who has a body is an athlete, can be leisure level, can be professional level. Second part is in magenta, fans and content. As the title says, this is for the consumer of sports, the fan. And the third sector of the framework is management and organization. This is more for the executive, for the manager behind something, the person who has to make sure that sports get streamed, that everything is working in the stadium, that the gym is running, these kind of things. So that's a quick run through. And what we observe here are 2 things mainly. Activity and performance is the strongest sector in sports tech. And it's important to notice that this is mainly driven by the fitness industry. So everything like Peloton, Swift, Strava, all these kind of big solutions, but also some in Europe like Freeletics from Germany, they are driving this sector to being the number 1 sector. So the sector as a whole is very strong. If we look at individual companies, on the contrary, we have to look into fans and content, because there we see that some solutions like Minute Media, like Superbet, but also Odro are the ones who get the most funding amounts. And these funding amounts that we're showing here are the total amounts that have collected so far. So besides fitness driving the whole sector of activity and performance, we can state that content solutions, but also betting solutions actually drive the big deals that are happening in sports tech. And management organization, which is typically a bit more B2B driven, is a rather small sector, or the smallest one here. But for example, we also have one undisclosed deal by SportsTechx, assumingly a very big one. So the numbers might be a little bit closer than they appear to be here. Here, this is a little bit less fact-based and more my subjective opinion, I would say. First of all, we want to look at the Accelerator and incubator programs in Europe. And the main message here is that there are a lot of them out there. Yeah, so if you look at that slide, if you would have looked at that slide 2-3 years ago, that would have been much emptier, not even speaking about 5-6 years ago. So this is getting really dense. We still have some white, or in this graphic, gray spots here. So there are some opportunities. I expect at least 1 incubator per country at some point, but there's a broad variety of things happening there. And this ranges from programs with clubs over government or public funded ones, up to ones that are organized by, for example, some independent initiatives. Yeah? But also, for example, Essex in Barcelona with 10x10, there's a big brand behind this. So a broad variety of programs here. Here are some more open, more diverse innovation initiatives. So they don't have specific programs that they're running. So they are very colorful regarding what they actually do. So sometimes they have little pilots, sometimes they do something year round, sometimes they run events. So it's very diverse. But what I like here is, for example, that also here clubs are picking up. Barca Innovation Hub is doing this for years now. I think they're one of the front runners, but it's also Real Madrid as one of the other big European clubs starting something this year. So very strong in Spain. And remember what I said a few slides ago, Spain needs some impulse, I would say. But we also have federations and associations. We have the UEFA, we have the German Football Federation, to just name a few. But we also have things that are very community driven. For example, Nordic SportsTech, Sports Lab Copenhagen, SportsTech Poland, SportsTech Ireland, or single people who are very well connected, like Charlie Greenwood with Sports Loft, very promising initiative that started this year. So again, very colorful, lots of things happening. And let me close with mentioning the best one out there, which is clearly ThinkSport in Switzerland, in Lausanne, based on some secret criteria that I'm not going to share with you. So this is a quick run through sports tech in Europe. One thing I do want to highlight, because I didn't mention it before, in my perspective, and I'm following this closely, basically on a daily basis, I think sports tech has reached the mainstream level. I think especially last year, and if not last year, then definitely this year. Last year, because we've seen so many initiatives popping up, and even like, let's say the rather old school ones, like existing conferences, which have been running for many, many years, included some sort of innovation topic, awards, pitch, whatever to their program. So everybody knows that they have to do something regarding tech and innovation now. On the contrary, I want to highlight this as well. Quantity, of course, doesn't always mean quality. And this is unfortunately what we have been observing as well. So there are a lot of initiatives out there, but I think they're often lacking maturity, professionalism, and like a clear purpose, like a clear outcome orientation. And this is something I do need to mention. It's important for me to mention that, because I think if sports tech wants to be seen as something important, valuable, also to be able to compare itself to strong tech industries like fintech, health tech, and the others, I think we need to improve professionalism as well. That's my take on sports tech in Europe, and hopefully not too many minutes. And yeah, now I'm curious on your thoughts and questions, of course.
I think we need to rethink events. What is the future of events in the next 2 or 3 years, when people remain to be very careful in going into a crowd? And I think there is also an opportunity for some innovation. How do we create events, new disciplines or new ways to attend events? And I think this is a sector where many investors and many big companies are looking for solutions.
I especially thinking about, like say, the security side of things, like having temperature scanners, maybe you having to show your new passport that states that you are free of any virus infection, or is it more on the content side of things that you say after this crisis, people want to consume things in a different way?
I think we need to rethink events. So how we show events, how can we perform top sports in front of no audience, for example, have digital audience, or have digital signs on the walls, or added augmented reality, or whatever is there. But this is where innovation is called for.
I think absolutely. I think it's not just the way it's consumed. I think the entire business model of sports organization and event organization need to be reviewed. I think the current situation that we are living right now is very unfortunate, but it is a reality that it is a slap in the face, I must say, to make people realize and to make sports organization realize and event organization realize that the business model need to shift towards more to be more innovative, more changing. Because if you look at it since the 40s or since the early 30s, the event models haven't changed much. There was some changes in the 80s with the new models of the Olympics and selling the TV rights, etc. So the revenue model was always the same. But now there needs to be sort of a new innovative way to shift the business model to make it sustainable for the future, not only from the fan perspective on how they consume the sports, but also from an organization on how they are going to survive without the event and become event agnostic. So that's the challenge. Lauri, you're on point here when innovation need to drive the conversation on how sports need to be consumed in the future.
Yes, and I can't agree more. you know, as startup, we are used to iterate our business plan and strategy on a daily basis. And this is really a time where we are doing that exercise very much, because I tell to my team, I said, you know, what if we remain locked down forever, or a new epidemic like this is again in 2 years, maybe government will again take measures. So you cannot say it's a crisis and everything will pass, we just wait. That's not a good way. It's rather, okay, how can we reinvent ourselves in a world that will have to be without events maybe, or with events in a totally different way. And I must say, we have the chance to be really positioned very well in this crisis, because we are doing digital experiences in many aspects. And for many years, I have seen the market response was quite hard, because there was a day-to-day business that was quite good, all right, growing numbers. Everybody was like, what do you want to change retail? Yes, there is things on internet, but still brick and mortar has a long way to go and so on. And now from one day to another, it has completely changed. And we see now big traction on digital retail experience, or retail experience that can be then continue with home monitoring stuff. We see a big trend in sports medicine. Now all the doctors were trying to push solutions for people to measure themselves at home. They would have loved to have it now, because they would be able to continue to follow their patients in those months. So yes, we see a strong trend of events going in a big question mark mode, and all the rest having very strong traction. Yeah.
Question connected to that, maybe to all of you, maybe starting with Lauri again. Do you think that investors are going to see this opportunity this year already and are like going for it aggressively, or are they saying, hey, let's keep our cash where it is and wait a little bit till this is over and we can see what's happening? Do you think there is like the braveness to do this now?
The need is there. The need is there to find digital solutions and to find investment targets. And look at the big broadcasters, for example. They need content. Look at the big audience. They are hunger for content. So there is some pressure. But something what has totally changed in the last 6 weeks is the availability of cash. 2 months ago, there was too much cash finding a way, an object, a target for investing, and now everybody is short of cash, and that has really brought a lot of pressure to the financing rounds of many growth companies, and there I see a lot of difficulties for companies to raise money in the coming months. The need is there, but yes, the investors will be increasingly selective and careful where to put their money.
Mm-hmm. If I can comment from a startup point of view, I think the typology of investors is make a huge difference. If you think about angels, there would be, oh, maybe I save my cash, or maybe if you would be opportunist. If you look at strategic investors from maybe company funds with a lot of cash in the bank, they have totally different stake and situation than standard VC and so on. So I agree, but we, from a startup point of view, don't see a general trend. It's, you know, it's either on one side or the other.
From our side, at least, from a federation perspective, I think there is a huge shift in the way we not only we're thinking events, but also how we're investing in our operations, thinking in different ways of how we are going to, you know, what are the different areas that we need to allocate more money to it. So as well, seizing the opportunity, because right now, yes, with everything on hold, we can't say that maybe we can just take a day off and just go on vacation, but that's not the case, especially when you're working in digital. So there are certain investments, even internal, that need to be shifted towards another way.
I want to connect to that. Two questions actually. So what is the current appetite and also mood within a federation, especially yours, if I may ask and if you can answer. So is it like oh, okay, there was a shock first, but now it's like, okay, this gives us a really good opportunity to do something new, and we really have this appetite, and the mood is like, okay, let's kick that virus's butt, if I'm allowed to say the word on this webinar.
Yes.
Or is it like, oh, it's so it's tricky, let's see and do some research?
No, I think it's definitely. I think so. So how we're looking at how we're doing it, at least I can speak from our federation, is that we're doing sort of an internal evaluation right now on looking at every single aspect and every single aspect of our operations, whether it's digital, tech, operations, event operations, etc. So it's sort of doing an audit of all our operations because we have the time to do it now. So when you're in the events mode, you finish an event, you barely get out of the water, and then another event hits you. So now we're actually taking this time to do an audit and look at where are the inefficiencies that we have developed and accumulated over the year, and improve that. Once this is done, and I think this is going to take a little bit of time because we are quite a big organization with lots of events, then I think we're the idea of kicking the virus's butt is going to come, where we'll kick things up a notch, where we're going to start investing in new innovative solutions and everything. But the initial stage is let's reflect a little bit on how we're doing things, what can we do better, and what we don't need to do anymore, to make sure that when this is over and this we can actually come back stronger. Actually, there's a few articles that will, like, or sports people will always tell you that the champions are made in the off season, and this is the federation's off season to improve.
Cool. Do you have any? Because I always have questions.
I have one. It might be a detail, but where do you see the reasons when you made the study? The reasons for the dominance of the UK and London in the domain. Why is it so dominant? And what are the factors that where other areas, other countries in Europe could develop their position here?
That's a question I get quite a lot. I have my truth, even though that doesn't have to be the ultimate truth. Actually, it's nothing surprising. It's the obvious reasons. UK is obviously amongst the strongest economies in Europe. B, the ties between the US and UK are still incredibly strong. They also have the advantage of speaking the same language. That is definitely an important thing, because North America, and especially the US, they are the super dominating nation in sports tech. And if there's one nation in Europe who has a good bond to that nation, then it's the UK traditionally or historically. So that's a big plus. The next thing is the sports ecosystem that we find in the UK. The biggest sport in the world is football, or soccer as the Americans say, and its home is in Europe, and some might even say it's in the UK. And the most valuable teams in Europe are in the UK. They get the most money. They are the ones who have been doing the internationalization extremely well, or better than the other European nations. So this is the mecca of European sports with the most money. And I think they also have some regulatory advantages in the UK that helps to invest in startups there. And in general, it's a strong startup nation within Europe. And all these factors combined lead to that position that UK and especially London is in. Coming to the question. Yeah.
Don't you think there is also the influence or the heritage from the Olympic Games in London, and that we can anticipate that the Olympic Game in France would drive much more money and investment in France? For instance, we have seen a lot of initiatives for grants for research and innovation in sport tech coming from France. Mm-hmm. That is sometimes only accessible to French companies. But you see, each Olympic is driven a lot of resources. Huh?
I see that twofold. So Olympic Games are definitely an important event, without a doubt. But they're always a strong impulse for at least a city, if not a region or a country. Mm-hmm. But the other part of it is, what does a city, a region, a country make out of this? And we all know these reports that Olympic stadiums are not being used anymore, that the facilities are worn down. that nothing is done sustainably after the Olympic Games. And in the case of London, that might have helped. In other countries, I think it still has to be proven that this helps. I think France is doing it very well because they are now already preparing very intensely for the Olympic Games. For example, my buddy Omar, who was at Le Tremplin before, he is now the innovation director for the Olympic Games, and I'm sure he's going to do some good things, which will also benefit Paris and probably the country as well. So I think it always depends on how well prepared you are as a country or city or region. That's my take on this. And the second part of Lauri's question was, what shall other countries do? That's always very tricky, because I think there have to be some fundamental changes in countries, which also happen on the legal or regulatory level, which probably would turn into a very boring conversation now. But I think it always helps if you have one strong hub in a country. For UK, that's London. For Paris, for France, that's Paris. For Germany, it's rather Berlin than Munich. But I think it helps if you have one driver in the country, and if you have a person or an organization that is driving or is in the driver's seat for that community and that network in the country, which of course includes like some lobby work and these kind of things. So that is so there have to be some people who drive the whole thing. There have to be some regulatory things, but connected to that, always the question comes up: even if there are cool companies, cool startups in a city or a country, what then? They always need support from the stakeholders, and this is somebody from federations like Mota. This is the clubs that have to be open-minded, that provide testing beds for startups. So it has so many aspects, from government level to federations, clubs, teams, mindset and openness, up to individuals who are driving certain ecosystems. So there is, of course, no blueprint that you can take out of your table and say, hey, this is how it's going to be done, because mostly it's something that developed over many years. Then this is a wrap. This is the first smart talk from ThinkSport. Pleasure to talk to you guys. Good questions, good topics. Thanks for being here, and stay safe.
Me too.
Yes, thank you to everybody.